Hello, my name is Kendra Vivar, and today I'm going to be going over some effective strategies and practices for dual language learners, or DLLs. I'll be talking about Spanish, the other languages spoken in the United States, some strategies and materials to use in the classroom, as well as a video from the experts at the end. So, other than English, Spanish is the highest spoken language in the United States. To give kind of an example of that, I'm going to show a little statistic that talks about the primary language use among Hispanics in the United States from 2011. And what this graph basically says is that first generation individuals will be mainly either Spanish dominant or bilingual. Second generation is about half and half. And third generation, it's about 70% English dominant, but still about 30% Spanish or bilingual dominant. So how this applies to being an early child education teacher is that even if we encounter even second or third generation students, that there is still a chance that they will be Spanish or bilingual dominant, or that their parents will be bilingual or Spanish dominant. Something to keep in mind when teaching the children, that even if they are second or third generation, they still might need that extra help with that language barrier. Something I found that was a little bit more local talked about the Tulsa area, talks about CAP Tulsa and their early childhood program, which CAP Tulsa is basically, it stands for Community Action Project, and it's a school for children ages 0 to 5. And what their statement says is that from their program, they serve about 2,300 children across the Tulsa area, and about 40% of those children are Hispanic. And at one of those locations, from the 220 at that one location, half of them are Hispanic. Something to keep in mind that in the Tulsa area, there will be students that you will encounter as a teacher that will speak Spanish, that will either be bilingual or that they will be Spanish dominant. And it's something to be aware of and to be prepared about. So, I'm guessing, unless you can speak Korean, you probably don't know what the line above says. And if it weren't for the bottom line, you probably wouldn't be able to sound it out either. Imagine that's what it feels like for a student from Korea to come over and see our language and not only not understand what it says or what we're saying, but not even be able to sound out the written language. If you're curious as to what it says, the line below says, "Do not assume that all dual language learners will speak Spanish," which is something very important to keep in mind when teaching. Because there are so many other languages other than Spanish around the world that can be spoken in the United States. So down here is a chart from the Census Bureau of 2015 in the United States of the different languages spoken in the United States by rank. Obviously, the top language is going to be Spanish or Spanish Creole at 40 million speakers. And it's kind of a large drop-off from the first and the second because Chinese is only 3 million, but that doesn't mean that you will not run into children who speak Chinese. Something to keep in mind is that, especially with Chinese, Tagalog, Vietnamese, those are not Latin-based languages. With Spanish, at least they have the same alphabet or a similar alphabet and a similar way of pronouncing those letters. However, for the Asian languages and other languages around the world, it is a completely different type of writing style with completely different letters, where they might use characters instead of letters, and it's a completely different type of grammar and syntax that they might use. The way of speaking and thinking might be completely different. So something to keep in mind is that not all your children will speak Spanish. You may know a little bit of Spanish and might feel confident about working with DLLs, but you're not always going to get that. You're not always going to feel comfortable because you may not always know the language. You may not always know how to talk to them or their parents. And while Spanish is the most dominant language in the United States, you have to be prepared for anything and everything that comes your way.